All right, I'm here in the V range at the Gander Mountain Academy. One of the best things you can do at the V range is work from different holsters. In other words, let's say that you normally carry strong side hip, the 3 o'clock traditional carry position, or maybe you've never carried a concealed firearm at all, but you've practiced in training environments from the strong side hip. Maybe you've done competition shooting, something like that, but you've never carried concealed. So it's one thing to come to the range and have this holster on your hip and be able to present in what is generally one of the most efficient, safest, fastest, easiest ways to present a gun from the side where our hand normally sits near our hip, comes straight up and drives straight out. You're interested in doing something that's actually going to take the gun from the side of your body and put it more in front of or behind your torso so that you don't print, right? Obviously, if I were to untuck this shirt and try to cover this firearm up, that's probably not going to get it done, right? If I'm actually walking through the mall, walking down the street, probably pretty obvious that something's going on there. Whether people know I'm carrying a gun or not, kind of irrelevant. We really don't want this look. So what we might do is we might think about carrying inside the waistband right here in a place like this crossbreed holster puts the gun, which is actually considered a 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock carry. So if we think of the body as, points on a clock, 12 o'clock is straight out, 3 o'clock is straight to my right, I go behind 3 o'clock. Now, when I untuck the shirt from the front, you don't see any of that. You don't see any of that. Now, this is a rather large gun. Of course, the guns here on the V range are full-size guns. So we might still get a little bit of printing from the large grip of this Glock 17 or Glock 22 size firearm. But if we think about this being a smaller, mid-size, or compact 9mm, even on the hip, you're still going to see that, whereas you wouldn't if we put that there in that closer to the small of the back region. Now the problem is, when I get ready to present from that position, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck my shirt back in so you guys can see the motion that we're looking at. When I get that shirt tucked in, when the gun comes out of the 4 o'clock position, I reach back, I get my good firing grip, I come up. A lot of people tend to cross themselves. They tend to put the gun right across their body. Obviously, there's a lot of vital organs. There's a lot of problems here. If I happen to have an accident, some guy comes in, blocks the gun, I hit my hip, I move the gun across my body, I hit the trigger too early, all things we want to avoid, but we could say are possible. We want to make sure we're not doing that. So we want to learn to present from any of these 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock positions so that the gun comes up next to our body and orients parallel with our leg and with our torso as we come across and then into a shooting position. Now obviously I could train this with a dry gun, I could train this with just my finger gun, I could train it with a live gun. Live gun creates certain dangers if I haven't been trained and if I haven't gotten the reps. I can come to the V range and practice in a completely safe and convenient environment without any instruction and learn to get a feel for that. And the most important thing about why we would want to do it here is we can actually get feedback about our presentation being true and appropriate. Because if I just learn to do this wrong, let's say I were to practice 20 reps of this. That's 1, and fast forward, that's 20. Well, all 20 of those, I was sticking the gun out in front of my chest, not in parallel with my line of sight. Of course, what I want to do when I learn to practice, draw that gun, is come up and drive out. But if I don't have the accountability of the laser simulator, I may not be doing it right. So I come to the V range and let's practice it properly. Integrate my flinch, reach back, drive out, take that shot. And I get to see that hole show up. I know I'm doing what I wanted to do. Again, I set it up a little faster. I get the recoil, I get the experience, I know for sure that I've got the gun coming out of the holster, maybe I have a training partner watching to make sure I'm not covering myself, and I have accountability for my shots. This is a huge advantage of this laser training situation. When I come into the V range, I can be completely safe, but I also get my feedback. Let's say that we were gonna take something experimental like this, what I call a non-holster, right? This is a trigger guard device that attaches to your belt that a lot of people have considered a viable option for carry, appendix style. Now, there's certainly a lot of different holsters you can get that are appendix style holsters. This one is one of the more radical ones. It's very minimalist, and it does have some issues. For example, when I put it in here, if I slam against the back of the gun too hard, I could actually pop the gun right out of the holster. Now I've got a gun that does not have anything covering the trigger guard. It's loaded, it's floating around inside of my waistband, and it's not protected. You can see there's nothing on the actual trigger. So this isn't a holster type that I prefer, but if I wanted to experiment it, and I have experimented with it, I've done that in a live fire setting. Would have been much better, much safer if I could come into the virtual range and experiment with this gun with no danger whatsoever. I could be in this position and actually get my practice. And we can see that that's a very, very fast presentation. Now, the recommended procedure is you actually take this non-holster, the holster guard off, you go ahead and put it back on the trigger guard, you put it back down in, and then you re-snap it. Now, being able to practice this in this environment lets me appreciate the speed of this trigger guard type holster or carrying device. The problem is I still don't think it secures the gun well enough. So I'm going to choose not to use this type of holster at this point. Maybe keep looking at it, maybe keep thinking about this type of design and figuring out when it can work, when it makes sense. But for me, with this particular gun, I consider it a non-issue. The nice thing about training in the V range, I didn't have to expose myself to a live fire situation to experiment with this and figure that out. So whether it's a great option like this crossbreed at 4 o'clock, or maybe a not so great option like this holster guard, or trigger guard holster here at the appendix carry, either way, the V range lets me train conveniently and safely.